You probably carry a card in your wallet right now,
Mm,
or maybe a medical ID on your phone that actually predicts your risk for a stroke.
right.
And it predicts your likelihood of cognitive decline
Mm.
and even like how severely you're going to react to a bad plate of sushi.
Mm.
And it's hiding right there in plain sight. It's just the single letter of your blood type.
It really is wild when actually sit down and think about it. I mean, most of us just view that letter A, B, O, or AB as this emergency code,
Yeah, exactly.
like a bureaucratic piece of information solely meant for the paramedics and, absolute worst case scenarios.
Right. We treat it like our eye color or our height. But then you step into the actual biology of it, and suddenly that whole illusion just completely shatters.
Mm.
So today, we are going deep into an incredibly eye-opening breakdown from the YouTube channel Think Science.
Which is a great channel, by the way.
Oh yeah, highly recommend it. They put out this video called Your Blood Type is Deciding How You Die, the Science. And our mission for this deep dive today is to decode how this single letter you carry around is, it's actually a biological blueprint.
Yeah.
It's dictating your daily health, how you age, and the very specific ways your body handles the modern world.
It's a total paradigm shift, honestly. It reframes how you look at your own body. You aren't just this generic human being. You are running highly specific evolutionary hardware.
I love that phrasing, evolutionary hardware. And to understand that hardware, the source video uses this fantastic analogy that I really want to lead with here. So imagine your red blood cells are like tennis balls,
Yeah.
right? And they're just kind of floating down a stream.
Okay.
Now, on the surface of these tennis balls, there are these tiny little spikes, these sticky patches. You can think of them like biological Velcro, which scientists call antigens.
Yes, exactly. The antigen is the absolute foundation of this entire concept. Because if you are type A, your tennis balls are covered in A-style Velcro. If you're type B, you have B-style Velcro. But if you are type O, your tennis balls are completely naked.
Naked tennis balls.
Exactly. You have zero of those A or B antigens on the surface. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this Velcro dictates two massive factors about your daily existence.
Okay, lay them on me.
First, it determines exactly what kind of viruses and bacteria can actually lash on and hijack your system. And second, it determines the actual viscosity of your blood.
Viscosity meaning like how thick it is.
Right. It's essentially deciding whether your veins are pumping thin, fast-moving water or thick maple syrup.
Oh, wow. Okay, let's start with the fast-moving water then, the baseline. What happens when your blood has absolutely no Velcro? We're talking about type O positive, right? Which makes up, I think, nearly 40% of the world.
Yeah, almost half the population.
So you probably think of type O as the original tough, resilient, hunter-gatherer blood.
And in many ways, it is exactly that. Because type O blood lacks those sticky A and B antigens, it is chemically slippery. You naturally have lower levels of a clotting protein called the von Willebrand factor.
Okay, wait. Explain the von Willebrand factor to me like I'm 5. What is this protein actually doing in the bloodstream?
Sure. So think of the von Willebrand factor as a biological fishing net, or like a kind of super glue.
Okay.
When you get a cut, this protein activates, and it helps all your blood platelets stick together to form a dam to stop the bleeding.
Got it.
Because type O individuals naturally produce less of this glue, their blood simply takes longer to clump up, it flows much more freely.
Which gives you what the source calls superflow blood. And the good news here is incredible, really. Because your blood doesn't want to clump, you are practically bulletproof against deep vein thrombosis, DVT, and random stroke-causing blood clots.
Right, which is a massive advantage. But, biology always demands a trade-off.
Oh.
The bad news is the massive hemorrhaging risk. Because you lack that biological glue, if you get into a car accident or undergo major surgery, you are going to bleed out significantly faster than anyone else in the population.
That is terrifying.
It really is. In fact, trauma surgeons often guess that a patient on the table is type O simply by watching how incredibly difficult it is to stop their bleeding.
That is wild.
Yeah.
You walk around thinking you're Superman because you're O positive and stroke resistant, and meanwhile, the surgeon operating on you is just like sweating, going through surgical gauze like paper towels because you won't stop bleeding.
Exactly.
But here's the twisted irony that really caught me off guard in the research. We have this tough, super-flowing hunter-gatherer blood, but the immediate danger isn't usually a trauma event, it's your lunch.
Yeah.
Like a bad seafood dinner can literally send you to the hospital with severe dehydration, while your friends just get a mild tummy ache. So I have to ask, if type O doesn't have the A or B Velcro, why are these stomach bugs able to latch on so easily?
That is the cruel trick of typobiology. You don't have A or B antigens, true, but your cells do express something called the H antigen.
Okay, H antigen.
Think of the H antigen as the blank canvas that the other blood types build upon. And this H antigen acts as a literal landing strip in your gut for some very, very nasty bacteria.
Like what kind of bacteria?
Cholera, norovirus, and Helicobacter pylori, or H. pylori, which is the bacteria that causes stomach ulcers.
So these specific bugs are basically scanning the gut for this exact landing strip.
Precisely. They have evolved over millennia to lock onto the H antigen. They effectively possess a master key to your intestines. So you aren't weak. Your gut lining is just inherently vulnerable to these specific invaders.
Man, so your biology is essentially rolling out the red carpet for them. For the type of listeners out there who are suddenly very worried about their next meal, what is the actionable advice here?
Well, your primary shield isn't your blood, it is your stomach acid. You have to keep your stomach acid strong enough to incinerate these bugs before they ever reach that landing strip.
So no antacids.
Exactly. This means you must avoid the chronic use of over-the-counter antacids unless a doctor absolutely mandates it. If you feel a burning in your stomach, do not ignore it. Get checked for H. pylori early.
Right.
And regarding the bleeding risk we talked about, you must explicitly warn your dental and surgical teams that you are type O so they can prep extra clotting agents well before they make an incision.
That makes total sense.
Oh.
Now, if O is the slippery superflow river, what happens when we look at the exact opposite end of the spectrum? What happens when your blood actively wants to stick together? Let's look at type O positive.
Right, so type A blood flips the entire biological script. It is loaded with the A-style antigen, and interestingly, it is accompanied by naturally higher baseline levels of cortisol.
Which is the primary stress hormone, right?
Exactly. But the defining characteristic of type A is hypercoagulability.
Meaning you are pumping thick maple syrup.
Yes. And in ancient times, this was an incredible evolutionary advantage. I mean, if you were foraging and got slashed by a wild animal, your sticky blood meant you formed a clot almost instantly. You didn't bleed out, you survived to pass on your genes.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because today, you aren't running from a tiger. You are sitting at a desk.
Yeah.
You're in an office chair for 8 hours a day, staring at spreadsheets. And when sticky blood sits still, it clumps. So for someone with type A blood, a chair is essentially a slow-acting blood thickener.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. A sedentary lifestyle is an acute biological hazard for type A, and the statistics deeply reflect that danger.
They really do.
Type A individuals have a significantly higher risk of deep vein thrombosis, pulmonary embolisms, and heart attacks simply because their blood is always primed to clot.
Wow.
But unfortunately, the risks don't stop at cardiovascular issues. Epidemiological studies have found a chilling link between type A blood and certain cancers, specifically gastric and pancreatic cancer.
Okay, stop right there, because this blew my mind in the source material. How does having sticky blood lead to stomach cancer? What does that molecular traffic jam actually look like, and how does it mutate DNA?
It really comes down to how the A antigen interacts with your cell adhesion molecules. Because your cells have this sticky A Velcro, they clump together much more tightly than type O cells.
Okay.
This tight clumping creates microscopic pockets where cellular waste and inflammatory proteins just get trapped. It's like a traffic jam where all the cars are locked bumper to bumper and the hot exhaust is just trapped there, slowly melting the paint.
Wow, so the inflammation literally can't clear out.
Exactly, the inflammation festers. And if you combine that trapped inflammation with the H. pylori bacteria we talked about earlier, it creates this exaggerated chronic inflammatory response in the stomach lining.
Which is a disaster.
Over years and years, that constant chemical fire damages the DNA of your cells, which leads to mutations and eventually cancer.
It's literally adding fuel to a localized fire. So for the type A listeners out there who are suddenly, glaring at their office chairs, what is the game plan for them?
Well, movement is no longer just about fitness for you. It is literal stroke prevention. You must stand up and walk around every 45 minutes, minimum. Keep the syrup flowing.
Right.
You also need to actively manage that high baseline cortisol through meditation, deep breathing, or yoga, because stress literally spikes your clotting factors further.
Oh, I didn't even think about the stress compounding the clotting.
It absolutely does. And finally, you need an anti-inflammatory plant-based diet. Incorporate natural blood thinners like ginger, garlic, and turmeric, and absolutely cut out processed meats. For a type A body, processed meat acts like gas on that inflammatory fire.
Okay, so we have slippery and we have sticky. But what happens if the blood itself is essentially aggravating the walls of the pipes it travels through? Let's dive into type B and type AB.
Okay, so type B positive makes up about 10% of the population, and it primarily originates from populations in the Himalayan highlands.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it boasts a very robust immune system, but it comes with a high baseline level of C-reactive protein, or CRP.
What is CRP actually doing in the body?
CRP is essentially a chemical alarm bell produced by your liver. It signals your immune system to send white blood cells to a specific area. But when CRP levels are chronically high, those white blood cells end up irritating and roughing up the inner lining of your blood vessels.
The source used a brilliant visual for this. Think of your arteries like a smooth rubber garden hose. Type B blood essentially makes the inside of that hose rough, stiff, and inflamed over time.
Right, and that vascular inflammation directly leads to peripheral artery disease. If your hands and feet are always freezing cold, this rough garden hose effect where the blood struggles to reach the extremities might be exactly why.
That makes so much sense.
Furthermore, that B antigen is a favorite anchor for completely different pathogens than type O. While type O gets wrecked by norovirus, type B gets hit hard by salmonella and E. coli from contaminated meats and eggs. Yeah, those specific bacteria use the B-style Velcro to anchor deep into the gut lining, which causes much longer, harder-hitting infections.
Okay, let's unpack this next one because this was the most shocking part of the entire deep dive. Type AB positive.
Oh, yes.
Less than 4% of the population. We all know AB positive is the universal recipient. You can take any blood in an emergency. But the research from the journal Neurology showed that people with AB blood have a staggering 82% higher likelihood of cognitive issues and memory loss as they age.
It is a terrifying statistic to read if you are AB.
It really is, and it feels like a massive biological paradox.
Huh.
I mean, if AB is the universal recipient and its immune system is so tolerant that it can accept literally anyone's blood, why does it struggle so much to process its OWN blood in the brain?
What's fascinating here is that it comes down to endothelial function.
Wait, explain endothelial function to me like I'm 5.
Sure. The endothelium is the delicate, ultra-smooth Teflon lining inside your blood vessels. It regulates how the vessels expand and contract. Because AB individuals have both the A and the B antigens, they inherit a dangerous combined legacy.
Like the worst of both worlds.
Exactly. They get the factor VIII clotting profile from type A, the superglue, but they mix it with the high CRP inflammatory profile of type B, the heat.
So if factor VIII is the glue and CRP is the heat, you are essentially baking sludge into the microvessels of your brain.
That is exactly what is happening. We are talking about microcirculation, the tiniest microscopic pathways that feed your brain cells. Over decades, this sticky, inflamed sludge severely impairs endothelial function.
Wow.
The vessels just can't dilate properly. It slowly starves your brain cells of oxygen, accelerating age-related cognitive decline at a terrifying rate.
So the solutions for B and AB have to be incredibly proactive. What do?
If you are type B, you need to watch for numbness in your extremities as an early warning sign of that rough garden hose effect. You must maintain hypervigilant food hygiene with poultry and eggs to avoid salmonella.
Undercooked chicken is a big no-go.
Absolutely. And you need to eat foods rich in nitric oxide like beets and dark leafy greens. Nitric oxide forces those stiff, inflamed vessels to dilate and open up.
And for the AB listeners dealing with the sludge effect.
Brain games are not optional. You have to keep those neural pathways firing. But crucially, you must use cardiovascular exercise to forcefully push blood through those tiny, sludgy brain capillaries. Keep your blood pressure low because high blood pressure combined with that sludge acts like a pressure cooker, which accelerates cognitive decline incredibly fast.
Okay, so far, everything we've talked about is based on the Velcro you actually have, the antigens present on the cell. But what if your cells have a giant biological keep-out sign on them? We need to enter what the video calls the negative zone.
Right, the RH factor.
Yeah, if your blood type has a minus sign next to it, which is only about 15% of all humans, you are missing a specific protein called the rhesus factor, or the RH factor.
Yes. And this absence creates massive life-altering risks, starting from before you are even born.
Wait, I've heard of complications during pregnancy, but are you saying a mother's body literally treats her own baby as a pathogen just because of a missing protein?
Unbelievably, yes. If an Rh-negative mother is carrying an Rh-positive baby, the mother's immune system can actually perceive the baby's blood cells as foreign invaders.
That is so wild to think about.
It is. The mother's white blood cells will literally cross the placenta and attack the fetus's red blood cells. It's a severe condition called hemolytic disease of the newborn.
Which sounds completely terrifying.
Yeah.
But thankfully, modern medicine has engineered a miracle fix for this, right?
It has. It's called the Rojam shot. It essentially acts as a cloaking device. It hides the baby's Rh-positive cells so the mother's immune system never sees them and never mounts an attack. It turns what used to be a fatal biological mismatch into a complete non-issue, provided you communicate your blood type with your obstetrician early on.
So what does this all mean for the daily lives of people with negative blood types? Let's look at O negative, less than 7% of the population, the universal donors. I like to think of O negative individuals as the superheroes of the ER. Like, you can save literally anyone. But if you get hurt, almost no one can save you.
It is the ultimate scarcity trap. You have 0 antigens. No A, no B, no Rh. Your blood is perfectly clean for anyone else. But because your immune system has never seen any of those antigens, if a doctor gives you anything other than pure O-negative blood, your body will violently reject it.
Oh, man.
If you are in a massive wreck, the hospital cannot give you O-positive AB or AB. They must find that incredibly rare O-negative bag.
And then you have A negative and B negative. B negative is found in barely 1% of people. Here, you are combining the sticky, inflamed risks of the positive types with the absolute nightmare of severe blood scarcity.
Exactly. You are carrying a high daily risk of needing a hospital due to clots or vascular inflammation, but a staggeringly low chance of finding compatible blood quickly once you get there.
And finally, AB negative. Less than 0.6% of humans on Earth. The video called this a biological ghost.
Because the immune profile is incredibly confusing to the body. You have both A and B antigens, but no Rh factor. Studies suggest this leads to highly erratic immune signaling.
Erratic in what way?
Sometimes your immune system is far too slow to react to an infection. Other times, it is completely disorganized. And in a mass casualty event, because you can only receive negative blood, you face an extreme supply crisis just like the other negative types.
Okay, so the safety loops for anyone in the negative zone have to be absolutely airtight. What do they need to do to protect themselves?
If you are O-negative, you need to locate the large regional blood banks in your area because small local clinics simply will not stock enough for you in a crisis. Wear a medical ID bracelet to save doctors precious time.
Makes
For A-negative and B-negative, utilize something called autologous donation. If you have a planned surgery coming up, go in weeks in advance, donate your own blood, and have the hospital store it. That way, you aren't relying on the public supply at all.
banking your own blood. That is such a smart, practical step.
It is literal biological insurance. And for AB negative, you need to build your tribe, track your extended family's blood types. Genetics run in clusters, so if your sibling or cousin is also AB negative, they are quite literally your lifeline in an emergency. Keep them close.
This entire deep dive just completely shifts how you view yourself. The medical system might treat you like a statistic on a chart, but you are actually a highly specific biological machine. And the good news is, now you have the user manual.
Knowledge is only valuable when it's applied.
Exactly. So let's run it down one last time. If you are type O, you need to guard your gut and protect that stomach acid. If you are type A, you must move constantly to keep your sticky blood flowing. If you are type B, you need to fight vascular inflammation with nitric oxide. If you are type AB, you need cardio to force blood through the microvessels and protect your brain. And if you are in the negative zone, you must plan ahead for scarcity.
This raises an incredibly important question, though, doesn't it? Everything we just discussed today is based on evolution. Type A's sticky blood clotted fast to survive ancient predator attacks.
Yeah.
Type O evolved alongside ancient gut bacteria. Type B developed in the rugged Himalayan highlands.
Right. Our blood was essentially biological armor against ancient threats. Which leaves us with a wild thought to chew on. If our biological Velcro was shaped by predators, ancient diets, and rugged environments, what does our modern, sterile, highly sedentary lifestyle mean for the future of human blood?
It's a fascinating concept. I mean, we sit in ergonomic chairs all day, we eat ultra-processed foods, we live in climate-controlled rooms. The evolutionary pressures that created A, B, and O have completely shifted.
It really makes you wonder, as our environment drastically changes, are we currently incubating the biological conditions for an entirely new blood type to emerge hundreds of years from now? Something completely different from A, B, or O, like something specifically built for the desk job era. It brings us right back to that driver's license. The next time you look at that little letter next to your height and eye color, remember, it's not just a medical category. It's the history of human survival flowing right through your veins.